When I was growing up as the active, loving, seminary, church-attending Mormon I was, I remember thinking about how interesting it was, the way the world saw us Mormons. When I would hear what some had to say about us, I was always left thinking how so much of the world really knew nothing about us. Even when they had some idea of who we were and what we believed, it was so surface level. They didn't know the depth of the church, the spirit that you feel when you sing beautiful hymns or walk into a sacred temple. How wrong they were about us. They don't know what I know, and if only they knew what I knew, they would see that we were normal, good people, like everyone else, and they wouldn't believe all these myths that they've heard about Mormons. That we were this weird cult, as some call us, that we were actually pretty great. Here I am thinking back to those days, where a part of me wanted the world to see us Mormons for who we really were, to not throw us into these stereotypes of judgmental people or people who still practice polygamy. As Mormons, we were good people, and I wanted the world to understand who we truly were. When we would get a lot of heat for some of the stances we took, I would think, if only the world understands that the church knew what was right and knew that it was of God. We were the victims of this misunderstanding. And I desperately wanted the world to understand us for the good, Christ-loving, Christ-defending church that we are. I can only imagine what a lot of members of the church must be feeling now. Attacked maybe, misunderstood, not wanting to be called homophobic because they don't hate gay people, feeling victimized from the reactions from the new policy, wanting the world to realize what they know, that it's not to exclude children, but to protect them. Ultimately, it's to keep the children from being placed in unnecessary, difficult circumstances and conflicting viewpoints. If only people understood that this policy comes from a place of love and from God, then they wouldn't be attacking us. I've read so many posts about this new decision, and just as I once felt misunderstood as a Mormon, and how I imagine so many Mormons feel misunderstood right now, I feel so much more misunderstood as a gay person. I read post after post thinking, if only these people knew someone who was gay. Or if only they know how many of those things they are saying are actually hurtful stereotypes. If only they saw the pain that I've seen other LGBT people face. Here are these Mormons wanting to be understood by the world, and here am I, a gay person, wanting the exact same thing. I oftentimes hear people in the church say, I don't hate gay people, I just disagree. Okay, fine, disagree, that's your decision. But please don't claim your love for gay people when you don't even know anything about them. Have you sat and listened to their stories, put yourself in their shoes, wondered what it would be like if it was you who could only fall in love with the same gender? Have you sat with them, cried with them, learned a little bit about their lives and how these sorts of things make them feel and influence them? If you have, then good for you. And if you haven't, then what's holding you back? I remember when I first started to realize that I wasn't straight. I was still very active in the church. When I started to wonder if I might be gay, I worried about what my future would look like. I think about all the arguments made against same-sex relationships and remember how at one point they were the toxic words that would eat at me. I would think to myself that the way I felt about that girl was wrong, that it wasn't right and it wasn't normal. Why am I made this way and why do I feel like this? It doesn't make sense. I thought about the possibility of ending up with a girl, and if I ended up with a girl, I could run away and live somewhere else. I would never have to tell anyone. And then I thought about my future family. I stressed about how they would be, being raised by two moms. As I stressed about this, I thought about what I wanted to teach my children. I want my children to live their truths, whatever that truth may be, to be their authentic selves. How on earth would I be able to teach my children to live authentically if I myself was married to a man and living my entire life a lie? If I wanted to teach my children to love themselves, then the best way I can teach them is by me loving myself. I would have to be open and embrace who I was. Some days I would slowly start to accept myself and think, maybe this is okay. Maybe I'm gay and everything will be all right. Then the next day I would try to convince myself I was straight. I would think back on the guys I had crushes on, praying to God that everything would work out. I would keep dating guys, hoping that something would be there. The more I tried to convince myself I was straight, the more stressed I would be, the less sleep I would get, and the more depressed I would feel. The more I started to love myself and accept myself, the more peace I felt and the closer to God I felt. Through this time, I was still attending church every week. Eventually, it got to the point where I would come home from church each Sunday feeling depressed and beat. Here I was trying to figure things out with my sexuality and trying to understand who I was, which is so hard enough as it is. And then I would go to church and hear about how bad it was and that it wasn't of God. The church became a toxic and dangerous environment for me. One of the articles I recently read said that the church has gone out of its way to make gay people feel loved and welcomed. I thought back to those days where never did I once feel welcomed, long before I ever dated a girl or knew exactly which direction my life would go. I still felt deeply rejected each Sunday when I walked through those doors. I used to wear a CTR ring on my right finger. I had worn it there since I was 16. I was at school one day and I was so depressed and so sad over figuring out my sexuality. I remember walking through my school campus near a balcony and having the desire to just jump off it. As my pain increased, not living began to sound more and more appealing to me. That day I wasn't paying attention in my class because I was just too sad. As I was sitting there in class, I looked down at my CTR ring and thought about how much pain I've suffered being someone who isn't straight and a member of the church. And I reached down, took it off, and put it in my pocket. I knew that if I wanted to ever have a chance of being happy and loving myself, I would have to let go of the church. I would have to let go of the religion that I once loved and was raised in. I would have to let go of a religion that helped me through some of the most difficult times of my life. Letting go was hard. It was like mourning the loss of a loved one. Like getting out of an abusive relationship that you knew ultimately needed to end. The belief that a part of who I am is so wrong that it's put next to rapists, abusers, and murderers, and viewed so sinfully, is abusive to me. It's demeaning, it's painful, and it's no wonder that Utah leads the nation in LGBT suicide rates. I'm not asking for someone to change their opinion, but I am asking for the same thing that I wanted when I was a member of the church: true understanding. People share their opinions openly as if they have no personal effect on people's lives. As if it's okay to say these words that may genuinely hurt someone because you have a church to back you up. I may not believe in everything the church believes and teaches, but I believe with all of my heart that God is one of love, compassion, empathy, and acceptance. He would never want any of his children to feel so depressed that they want to take their own lives. He would never think it would be okay to make his children feel excluded, different, or less than. And yet that's how I have felt, and that's what I see so many LGBT brothers and sisters feeling. I don't know why God created gay people. I don't know why he made me this way. But I refuse to believe that I'm a flaw in his plan. We're here for a reason, and our purpose is of equal importance as anyone else's. Who knows? Maybe one of those reasons is to help others look beyond beliefs, doctrine, stereotypes, and external things, only to see a human being inside, an equal child of God. How easy it is to cling to what you already know, to bury yourself in a concrete truth, never having to question or step outside, never having to work through the discomfort, uncertainty may bring. How hard it is to follow your God-given soul that couldn't care less what a person may believe or who a person loves, but loves them deeply the same. For my own sake of humanity, I have to believe that if people really understood the depth of pain that is caused by being left out of the church, the harm that is caused by having a part of who you are be grouped with pedophiles and abusers, feared by the church, deemed apostate, and having your own children and own family be left out, they would never in a million years support something that could be so damaging to a human life, to a child of God. People are generally good. I just believe that they are listening to a voice outside themselves, rather than listening to their own heart that already knows somewhere within it what is of God and what is simply not. Interesting it was. I can't. Just standing there. Just sit. Sit down.
Okay, go.
Okay. Alright.
Okay, start over. Ready, go.
When I would hear what some... Oh my gosh! I'm starting again.